Wally. How are you today?
Doing great, Nathan. Happy seeing you.
Well, happy seeing you. I called this meeting to talk about a home inspector, and I'm just going to give a hypothetical home inspector to get your take and your advice to someone that is at that point where they need to hire. You know, they need to hire that first guy, that second guy, maybe two guys at once. Your call. I think a lot of these guys get stuck in too many details. You know, they don't just go for it and do it. But in your experience, this is the big question. How much does it cost to get your first inspector out on the road in real dollars?
In real dollars, so much of it depends on where they're coming from and what their expectation is. But I think the most important thing to remember is going from one inspector to two inspectors is not profitable. That you need to have a vision that says, I need to get from one to three or four, then I'll be more profitable than I am if I'm just alone. I watch so many guys get excited and they go, oh, I'm busy all day, I'm turning away work. And they bring in another guy and they feed that guy the leftover scraps. So let's make believe you're at 100% of your individual inspector capacity and you're turning away 10%. Well, the fantasy is you give that guy the 10%, he's starving, and then he leaves and competes against you, takes that 10% and a little bit more, and you get all pissed off. I've watched guys do this 4, 5, 6 times, and then finally say, you know what? I'm not going to bring on people. All I'm doing is training my competition. But you can see that happening from the very beginning because they didn't have a plan to get past that. And more importantly, and I learned this from hanging around Marines. In the Marine Corps, the most senior guy in the Marine, in that particular squad or company or battalion or the whole Marine Corps, the most senior guy in line to eat is in the back of the line. And the way to assure that you're successful in that transition from being one to being many is assuring that you only eat the food that's left over. So if you're not in a position individually, financially, to take a pay cut so that other person can have a good life, it's not going to work out. And you also need to keep in mind that 10% extra that you weren't doing that you gave to them isn't enough to sustain either of you. So first and foremost is the other guy eats first. Number two is having a plan to get rapidly from 110% of your capacity to 200 so that that guy's busy. And that's what's setting you up for person number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what does it cost? You know, the cost to bring a guy on board isn't much. I believe it's 5 to 10 grand at the very most. You know, you're not getting all fancy buying them F-350 pickup trucks, but to bring a guy on board, give him the tools and training he needs is probably a $10,000 expense in my mind. So that's not that big a deal. But
yeah, I think the number is a lot higher. And let's just work through it for a second.
I want to hear yours, and we'll see who got where how.
Well, so this is the scenario, and I get a lot of questions. I had a meeting with a client this weekend, and you know, part of that meeting was thank you for where we've gone together. He's been in it for 4 years. Before that, he was a school teacher making a school teacher's salary, and okay. You know, this month he did as much business in this month as he used to make, you know, a year, 4 years
good.
ago. Right. So he's doing 100 inspections a month, and he's done what so many inspectors do where they go, okay, I'm busy, I can add a guy, and they kind of hire an assistant, right? But not a guy that is going to be a full-time home inspector. And
the assistant is a Band-Aid, I think.
For too many, there's some that do it really well, but yes, for too many. And that's the Band-Aid when they get from the first stage in their business where they go, how do I get my first inspection? Then they go out there, and if they're good at it, they make it happen. They have a good marketing message. They hit the metrics. Then they end up at stage 2, which is how do I add revenue? And the answer should be, you know, environmental testing, termites, radon, ancillary inspections, pool, spa, irrigation systems.
High profitability, low risk.
Yes, and all of that becomes a marketing benefit because you're more of a one-stop shop. And then, you know, you might start making some simple square footage based pricing changes. And then you get to phase three. And I think that's where a lot of people end up picking up the assistant, because phase three is when you go, well, gosh, I need my life back. I need some automation. And, you hire a call center, you hire an assistant, and you get a CRM. And in that process, some will add an additional inspector and say, I want a guy that'll type reports between inspections or set up my ladders or whatnot. And it's a temporary crutch. It doesn't really give you any
Back to
marketing benefits.
band-aiding, yeah.
Yeah. And so you end up in that position where you have this guy now, and now you need to hire another inspector. So I tell people, don't hire one. The first thing you got to do is you got to hire two, because one of them may not work out. Both of them
Yeah.
may not work out. And then you're going to,
We have 3 in the pipeline presently.
and maybe that's good. Maybe you should have 5. I don't, but that number, people hear that and they go, that's going to be expensive, because, each one of them makes 25 to 50 grand a year their first year.
Yep.
So that's like a $25,000 or $50,000 expense. But I would argue it's not. You got 3 months worth of employee wages. But then you have the other expense that's big for these guys that are hiring the first and second guys, which is that they're no longer the inspector making the full compensation for the inspections that the guy is doing.
Yep.
So by the time you actually backfill your own inspections, I would say hiring an individual inspector is probably in the neighborhood of $75,000 to $100,000 in expenses. That's on the low end. You don't agree?
No, I don't. But that's okay. Get different ideas, and then a person will move their pencil and come up with their own thing. I am in agreement that guy number 1, there's a loss of personal income in the process. To me, that's why you need to push through number 1 very quickly to get to 2 and 3, so you can recapture that. And then to go from 1 to 3 simultaneously, like right now we have 3 in the pipeline, but we're not starting with 3.
Right.
We're from 1. It's a little bit different. So what we're able to do is not use them as much as an assistant. So they'll be riding along all day, getting smarter and wiser and smarter and wiser. And then in the afternoons, we have them doing ancillary services. So they'll go do a termite, or they'll go do something else. So we work to get them productive at a low level as rapidly as possible, because at some point in time, we're paying them $600 or $700 a week to train. So if we can get them doing one thing each day that gets $150, we're just a tick above revenue neutral, and we're not actually down any profitability, and certainly not down in personal income as we add people. But that first guy,
I think if
is a little
you go
scarier.
back in time, then when you had one inspector in addition to you,
Yep.
that next inspector that you took on wasn't just an employee or a staff member. It was somebody that was doing the inspections that you had been doing the week before.
Well, to be honest, back in the day, everybody was independent contractors and nobody got paid to train. Scroll ahead 25 years, it's 20 to 20. Good luck trying to build a business based on independent contractors and people training for 2, 3, 4, 6 months for nothing. That was a window in time that I think's over.
All right, so let's focus on another thing. This is another piece of advice I gave to the guy. So one, I said, don't pay off your debt right now. Don't listen to Dave Ramsey, because you need 2 or 3 or 4 inspectors. You got to get to that point where you have 7 of them out there before you're really profitable as a multi-inspector firm. And you're going to make a lot more money off that than you would off paying down a low interest debt that's going to go away anyway, because your car payment happens. So put that aside, hire 2 right now and make them W-2s. I never prescribed to the 1099 idea. I understand the logic behind it. But now that we're W-2s, I also think that we should not be paying inspectors a straight percentage. I think that's pretty damaging to home inspection companies. I think it's created a lot of their competition, because the inspector mindset is, well, gosh, if I'm making 30%, the other guy's making 70%, and that doesn't feel good. So my suggestion has been a base pay, and I think you were there probably 4 or 5 years ago when I put this on the stage for the first time and said, the UPS guy doesn't know what percentage of each
Yeah.
package he's getting paid. And I don't know that our guys should either. So here's what I've been suggesting to people: a $25,000 base with a $50 bonus per inspection, up to 10 in a week. And then after that, going up to 100 through 15. And after that, 150. I mean, at that point, it's a really busy week. And add into that, spiffs like, 10 or 15 bucks every time they do a radon or mold test and termite, and maybe a little bit more on the termite. But that all together turns into a $75,000 or $80,000 inspector at full scale. Um, are you paying your guys differently than that? And what have you found is the best way to keep them happy? I mean, really, you don't want them leaving for one of three reasons.
Those are three questions. Best way to keep them, best way to keep them happy. Those are all different things.
Yeah. But I just don't want them to be on their own and leave you, or go work for another guy, or just leave the business altogether. So how do you keep them engaged at your company?
I believe where we're going to end up, and we're not there yet, is essentially fixed salary and profit sharing rather than bonusing. We already do profit share. And for the longest time in the home inspection universe, I believe the business owners have concentrated on, they've been constantly fearful of overpaying a guy. So I'll give you $5 for this, $8 for that, $12 for this. And it creates an administrative nightmare from my perspective of doing all that jazz. What most humans want to know, they're not entrepreneurs. They just want to know, how much am I going to make this year? And what do I got to do to make it?
Right.
And we're in the process of really transitioning in that direction. And the only thing impeding that transition is what I affectionately refer to as our legacy inspectors. I've got guys that have been with us 17 or 18 years that each time we've worked toward and stepped toward that evolution. It's like, whoa, what are you trying to do to me? I'm like, I'm trying to have you live a really simple life. I want you to have a predictable life. I want you to have benefits. I want to have it be great for you. And we can't keep all of this baggage and get great at the same time. So
these are legacy 1099 guys, I think.
I don't have any legacy 1099. We've never had 1099s, Nathan.
Oh, good.
From day one, we had subcontractors beginning in '94, but all money went from federal tax ID number to federal tax ID number. So we never had 1099 baggage. A year ago, we transitioned to all W-2s, and that was a challenge, as I say, with people that have been around 10, 15 years and more, to get it going. But we were successful, and everyone on staff is now W-2s. And how we did that was by layering in benefit and allowance and getting people to understand that an allowance dollar or a benefit dollar is actually a larger dollar than a raw employee dollar. So if I can give you a dollar of black shirt allowance money, that's a real dollar. And Uncle Sugar didn't touch the money I had before I gave you that dollar. And Uncle Sugar doesn't touch that dollar when you get that dollar. That's a, 15, 20, 25% swing.
Well, I can only hope your guys are stylish enough to wear the black shirts.
Or blue blazers, actually. We have a blazer fund. But you get the idea. It's very difficult when you're adjusting pay scales. I talked to guys in California. A lot of them have been driven to hourly employment. That's yet another challenge. I believe in the long haul that what attracts people to a place of employment is opportunities for growth, stability at the low end, meaning I know I can get in and make whatever that number is, 40, 60, or 100, whatever the number is, that, okay, I can get in at this number and be stable, and there's opportunities for growth. And growth isn't just in being paid more to do the same damn thing. It's opportunities. Well, can I be an inspector team lead? Can I evolve into marketing? What else can I do in this company besides tote a flashlight and a ladder for the next 30 years? Now, that's the right answer for some guys, but for others, they're looking for different things. And I think even, the original conversation was that transition from one guy to the next guy. It's casting, what do you want that vision to look like? And we've known each other a very long time. we got ourselves to a comfortable place that's called $1 million a year, and I just got bored with it. It's just, okay, that's what we do. And it's only been over the last couple of years. Thank you for some of the fuel on this fire. I'm going, hey, let's build something bigger. Let's cast this vision that's larger. And from that, we've attracted more people, and no derogatory toward some of the people in the past, but we're getting younger, sharper, crisper people that want to engage in the vision, participate in the vision.
If you could go back in time, you had a DeLorean, you're going to hop back in time and warn yourself about legacy guys. And I don't mean any of those guys are bad.
No, they're not bad at all. It's just they're spoiled. A different structure.
They're spoiled rotten, right? Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, they are the guys that could come in and spend 4 hours and do a home inspection and go home and fish for the rest of the day and be fine because of the way that it was set up before.
Yeah.
If you could go back and do it all over again, where would you start if you had to rewrite it?
Rewrite it. I would definitely start with W-2s, all W-2s. I'd probably start by bringing in someone beyond myself to do the business development, to grow the business faster than you can recruit inspectors. I think too many times the principal in the company, especially in that transition from 1 toward 2 or 3, you end up in a scenario where you're a great inspector, but you're not really interested in, focused, or particularly talented on working on the growth side. You just want to be a home inspector. Well, if you want to be a home inspector, be a home inspector. But if you want to build a business, that's a different skill set. And most people seem not to be interested in that learning or that adaptation.
I guess I was going somewhere a little different than that. That's all good input, of course. But
of course.
I'm looking at these guys that are hiring now for the first time.
Yeah.
And I don't want them 10 years from now to look at some of their guys and go, you guys are a drag on me for reason X. So if you were to start with an inspector today, I'm thinking that a base salary with this bonus structure gives you the ability to keep them going for 40 hours a week, even if there's not 40 hours a week worth of inspections. If you could go back in time and give these guys 40 hours worth of stuff to do a week, where would your business be today? Would it be substantially different?
Yeah, it would be substantially larger, both in terms of numbers of inspections, dollar volume, as well as geography. But I got there late, so I'm sprinting.
Yeah. Well, it's all right, because 50 is the new 40 and 40 is the new 30, and I'm hoping anyway.
I'll be 65 in September. That's 65 is the new 29, as I see it.
All right, so Wally,
push-ups in Vegas.
You have the best communication skills of any home inspector I've ever met in my life, short of Russ Collio.
Russ, yeah, I'll say Russ is no longer a home inspector.
Right, he's not in it, so he abandoned shit. But that communication works best in person. And I have, 20 plus salespeople right now. I'm trying to get to 100 plus this year. That's been my goal. I'm not sure we're going to get there. There's been a few things happen. But I'm having trouble with one thing, and that's getting them to be effective in communicating with agents the way that they can do in person. Are you able to do it as well as you do in person on these Zoom meetings? And
well, that's a great question. We're up 50% since COVID started. So in 2019, I did 102 presentations of some kind. Could have been real estate boards or whatever it was. Twice a week, I was somewhere talking to somebody. And we had a plan to be in 200 places in 2020. And then what was the name of that thing with the cooties going around?
Yeah.
The COVID thing came, and I thought, oh crap, what are we going to do now? It just changed everything. As it turned out, it changed it for the better. I sit here all day long, and I'll do 6 to 12 Zoom activities in a day. Sometimes they're one-on-one conversations like you and I are having. Sometimes I'll have 100 people. We developed 30 different presentations that we could do. So we launch them on Zoom, and we do all the marketing behind it, Facebook events and whatnot. But anyway, it's hosted on Zoom, simulcast on Facebook Live. record it as MP4 onto YouTube, and then broadcast on LinkedIn. And as you know, multiple Facebook platforms and whatnot. We are so much more efficient, so much less expense. I don't buy lunches, I don't buy anything. I just talk. Then I've got 2 outside salespeople that have converted to phones and Zoom, because we tried to go out last week in Jacksonville, Florida. There's nobody at the offices. The 52% were closed, and the others had almost nobody in them. So we just said, okay, what do we do? So we're doing outbound calls to set up Zooms. We're doing, all those things. So for me, for us, the answer is yes. I'll tell you also, for those who, you mentioned, me communicating a lot. I've been doing a lot of communicating for a long time. It's very comfortable for me. If you're doing Zooms 4 or 5 times a day, you're going to be freaking great at it in about 2 weeks. It's just a matter of sitting and doing it. So I'm not concerned about that at all. The longer we're on lockdown, the faster we're going to grow.
Well, I'm going to come up with math on a new guy, because I think my 75 grand, if you're, it depends on which phase in your business you're at. If you have 7 or 10 guys or more, and you've systematized it, and you can bring somebody in, and you have an inventory problem, you need more guys. Yeah. That's one thing. But when you're taking that leap and you are personally doing 60 inspections a month or more, and it's time to hire, I think there's at least a $75,000 expense on an annualized basis, if not a little bit more. But we'll figure that out. I'll put it out
I
there.
think a lot, if you looked at it annualized, a lot of that has to be, how well did you choose that guy? How well did you train that guy? And how rapidly is he refilling that expense that he was up front? That's why
he's got to have 2 guys now. He's got to hire those 2 guys.
And so it's just,
but I had one other thing that you brought up, and I thought, oh yes, okay. So let's say hypothetically, you were 20 years ago, you were 25 years ago, and you were this guy. You had in this guy, I have 100 guys like this, if not 200 guys like this, that are, they're making 6 figures now.
Yep.
They're doing 60 to 100 inspections a month. They're killing it. They're ready to hire another guy.
Yep.
I argue it's a $75,000 direct expense or indirect expense in some ways to this guy. It might be less. You might be right on it. But at this point, would you go out and hire if you were that guy? My answer is yes. I would like to hear your answer, and let's put it in context of this 50% up that you're up since the bottom of COVID. Because we're up 50% since the bottom of COVID, but the home sales were up 44% year over year.
Some of it's right in the market, some of it's dumb luck. But when you also track what's the market doing for you in a national sense, for me in a local sense, am I outpacing the market? And we're outpacing the market. So that's
no surprise there. But are you said you have 3 in the pipeline. Yeah. Are you aggressive? Are you bullish on this year?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I have some concerns. I think that there will be a bit of a slowdown. Not that you won't continue to crush it. Not that you won't get.
Well, I don't know that. But I will tell you, I was fearful as March was going along that we were going to get all the way shut down.
Yeah.
And in Florida, when the governor made the decision, first he said construction was essential, and that turned into real estate. I thought, oh God, thank you. We are not shut down. Now it's on me. Here's the deal. If the market goes to 50%, unless you've already got 50% market share, there's still more out there than you've ever done before. So I took the mindset that said, okay, this thing might shrink 10 or 20 or 30%, meaning the market. That just means we got to work that much harder. Our cost of acquisition may go up a little bit, but we can actually grow while other people are hunkered down. And you've benefited from that same mindset.
Yeah. Well, just as I was sitting here, by the way, Wally, I think this is yours that come through on the Zoom.
Yeah. Hey, that's interesting. Ford So how that came about, a guy that lives down the road from me, he's an REO guy to the max. I mean, he does hundreds of these things a year. His wife's in commercial. He called me one day and he said, hey, I got this guy Ford. He's a young guy. He's been working for me. He's topped out doing what he's doing for me. And what he was doing was inspections on foreclosed properties. You just go out and look at them. He said, would you talk to him? I said, yeah, I'll talk to him. So that's where he came from. We're in everybody I talk to, I'll mention it today. We're hiring. We're hiring.
Well, I've certainly noticed that we're designing a lot of business cards lately for Home Pro. So keep it going.
I'll do it.
I'm going to come up with some math on what a new guy costs. So we're going to come back and debate that at some point.
Well, what does it cost to not grow your business and break a leg? What's that cost?
That's a larger expense.
There you go. So.
But for some of these guys, and I think most people are in this category, taking that money, whether it's a direct or indirect cost out of their pocket, can put them in a troublesome spot. So
it's true. But you criticize Dave Ramsey, and then I got to run. But here's the deal. If a guy prior to entering home inspection was a $50,000 a year guy, now all of a sudden he's doing his 60 or whatever, 80 inspections a week, and he's a $120,000 guy, and he's living like a $120,000 guy, that's a struggle.
Yes.
But if he stayed in that same lifestyle, now he's got residual. He can kick the crap out of the guy who's upped his lifestyle before he upped his business.
All right. Well, I'll let you get on to your next one, and
yeah, man.
I'll do the same. We'll do this again sometime soon. See you.
I appreciate you, and we are hiring. Thanks for the business cards.
I just want people to go work for you. That's a shortcut.
All right, that'll make us both very popular.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thanks.